All right, guys, we're here at the Rtisan podcast. We got my man Thomas Chabalier here with us. What's going on, my man?
Yeah, good, very good.
Good. It's so glad to see. I'm so glad to see you. It's been a while since I saw you last.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years or maybe 1 year, 1 year and a
Yeah,
half.
yeah,
Something like that.
yeah, man. I mean, it's so funny. I used to see you in the studio pretty much every night as we were
Yeah,
working and everything. But now you're on to bigger and better things since you left Columbia College Chicago. And you could talk about your experience there a little bit if you like. You were there for the MFA program,
hmm
the music for the screen. Do you want to talk about that?
yeah, sure. Because I came from France to do this program, and it was very new. Like we don't know that much about programming film scoring. It's something really new. Like it started to appear like a few years ago.
Yes.
But it was very good. It's at Columbia they really try to to make it, to innovate and to be attractive to people, to bring people, and they are very dynamic. They are really they try to push everything forward, and always open to new ideas, always open to new things. So it was really great, and it was very creative because we had to write music every week.
Yes.
So it really pushed me forward to write more music and to find about my musical identity. When you have to write music every week like that, like 5 to 7 minutes of music,
Yeah.
you find who you are. It's not always good because
Yeah.
sometimes I mean, you have to write a lot of music, but because you have freedom, and that's something which is less true in the professional world. So
Yeah.
I feel having the chance to do that while you're a student is amazing because you get to write music. And even now, when I have free time, when you have free time, you just hang out or you just do other things, but you don't write music. Nowadays, you write music when you have like someone ask you to write music. So the fact that at the same time you're forced to write music, but at the same time you have the freedom to write what you want, it's very inspiring.
Absolutely, man. I agree. So, I kind of feel like when things are in a time crunch, right? We kind of go to our bag of tricks. What was your, why, at least while you were getting your education, what was your bag of tricks? Like, what did those things consist of? I know personally that you play a little bit of jazz. Was
Yeah.
that something that you kind of implemented a lot in your studies?
No, because it's film scoring. It's very hard. I mean, jazz helps because it's improvisation. So you sit on the piano and you really quickly can find a melody and a good harmony. Like in jazz, it's something we do a lot. But the language of bebop, for example, it's not something that translates very well in orchestral music or even in electronic music. It's very specific. So which is good because then jazz is another art, and it cannot be it stay like it is. So it cannot be stolen. Otherwise it doesn't work. It doesn't translate. So I kept from jazz this ability to write music, improvise, find theme, find melody, harmonize, and find rhythmic ideas. But my bag of tricks, is that how you say? I didn't know the expression.
Yeah. That term is it's kind of like things that you kind of have down solid.
Yeah.
It's like your favorite 2-5-1 lick, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
in your
exactly.
it's in your
Yeah,
bag of tricks. Another
yeah.
term for it is like your wheelhouse. I don't know if you know that term.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Yeah, so it was really writing melodies and sitting on the piano and being able to find melodies that when I'm lost in a cue, I always refer to melody. Like I think melody is what drives, what helps me driving.
Yeah, for sure.
But so I was more orchestral composer, but I figured that actually I was spending more time because when you are orchestral composer, it takes way more time than when you use electronics, because electronics you just program real quick and you can get a very good sound pretty quickly. Not that in the end it doesn't. It's not. I'm not saying one is more, but like when you have to do a quick work, it's easier in electronic music than when you have to write for other orchestra, make it sounds good and everything. So I was spending more time, I think, than I should, but it was great because I could use orchestra every week.
Yes, I love it, man. So, what made you gravitate towards film scoring?
Again, with jazz, and I started like just the fact to produce music and to improvise music. I always wanted to like see what was like to compose music for movies, and I got this chance. And more people asked me for scores, and I started to produce more and more music. And then I figured that there is a lot of freedom in the fact that you're producing your own music and you're contributing to something bigger. Like you're contributing to a collective piece of art, which is, I think, very fulfilling. And also being a composer, you're on the side and you have freedom, because even if you are working for someone or in collaboration with someone, no one can dictate you because you're composer. So
Right.
you in the end you decide.
Yes.
People try to orientate you, and you try to help going to something that everybody is happy with. But in the end, you cannot have someone. You are free in the end, I think. And
Right.
for me, that was what's important in film scoring, is like you produce your own music. You are free because you produce everything, so you choose the sound that will end up being here, as opposed to when you write acoustic music and you don't have the final touch. The musician has the final touch, but when you produce your own music, you decide everything. You decide, oh, this violin is too, like the mic of the violin is too close, I want a sound from further away, so you can change that.
Yes.
So this freedom, I think, was the thing that really attracted me.
Yeah, man. I'm with you. I feel the same way about a lot of things that I write. uh, when did you? I don't know if we ever talked. Well, I'll say that towards for the end actually. So, what was the biggest initial hurdle for you as far as going from kind of one, two, three, four to oh, I have to make music for moments and not necessarily write a moment. You know what I mean? Like when you have a melody in your head, if you're singing a melody, you can sing the melody. You can kind of work it out on piano. Maybe you figure out on piano it doesn't exactly sound like how it did in your head, and you kind of go through that. But with film and even in video games, I know you worked a little bit with that too, as well as you in your studies. Uh, you're more or less creating for what you see. So you have to write something to what you see, and not necessarily you're not creating something that's already in your own head. How did you overcome that, man? Because I know that's a challenge.
Yeah, for me, I get my inspiration from this. That's the point, and that's why I really love to write for animation, because in animation you have so many like colors and so many pictures, funny picture. It's really stimulates your brain and your imagination. So for me, I don't see it as a constraint. I see it as something that inspires you and push your music towards something else. So it becomes very hard after a while to write music without picture. You're like so used to see, and also in the structure, like you have your structure already set up with when you have a film, because you have the picture and you know that your music should start here and end up here, and
Yes.
you have your path, like this picture, I need a hit on that. So you really can, it gives you a form, and that's really great. It's exactly when you arrange a tune in jazz, like you have you want to do an arrangement and you have like the theme and the melody and the harmony already there. So because you have that, you have more freedom to express other things.
Yes.
For me, like being without anything is very scary. I feel like, oh my gosh, I have so many freedoms that I don't know where to go. So having this structure and people asking for something is very inspiring me, and it gives me confidence. I'm like, okay, we want something energetic, we want something or we want something romantic, okay, so I'm not gonna doubt about if it was the right choice from the get-go.
Yes.
So
I understand.
it helps. I think it's inspiring.
Right. I'm a kind of person, I hate any kind of restrictions put on me in any way. It's just kind of my personality. But sometimes, when you're creating things, it helps to have some barriers up as
Exactly.
far as like what you're creating. Just kind of, as writers, creatives, artists, as people, we can kind of allow our emotions and our creativity just kind of like splatter all over the place, right? And it'll just be a mess. It's like it's like a fire hydrant. You just open a fire hydrant, the water's just shooting all over the place. But when you attach the hose, it's a more focused. It's a guided stream, and it's much more effective that way. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it's when you're practicing at home and when you're trying out new things, the splatter can be great, But when there are deadlines in place, sometimes okay, I need a minute and 3 seconds of music exactly. Create a minute and 3 seconds of music. You know when the hit points are coming. You know exactly when you need to do the emotional music thing. You have all that down, as opposed to, hey man, just go create something. You got 10 minutes, just go. That can be paralyzing almost. But if you got a minute and 3 seconds exactly, and then the music's got to stop because something else is happening. That can be kind of the restrictions can be freeing, sort of.
Totally, yeah. And yeah, it's like when you're doing a homework, you want to do it differently, and the fact that you want to do it differently, you wouldn't have think about that if you didn't have the obligation to do it in the first place,
Yes.
So that's complicated, because then when you have time and you have no freedom at all, then it's hard to find the motivation to write music.
Right. It's a double-edged sword, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know when I come home from work, I rarely want to do anything. So it's definitely a skill, man. You definitely got to learn how to do both.
But in this way, it's very similar to jazz. Like in jazz, you have a structure already set up. You have like when you play standard, you have the melodies, the harmony already there. Everybody is playing that, and one thing you cannot mess up with is the time. Like you can improvise around time, but you have to follow the structure no matter what happens.
Yes.
Everybody is following the chords. You can change the chord, but at the end of the 32 bars, everybody has to be on one. For the
right.
next.
Absolutely.
So you have also this obligation. So it's always a compromise between freedom and restriction.
For sure, man. I'm with you. So now that you're done with school, you moved to where?
So after Chicago, I moved to LA, Los Angeles, because most of the people agreed that it was like the place for a composer. Like this is obviously the place where there is a more bigger industry. Yeah. And I worked over there a little bit. Like I worked as an orchestrator. I worked on several very cool projects. I also worked as a teacher. I was a music teacher. And I did a couple of things on my own as a main composer.
Yeah.
I had to put on the side the performance, which is I try to get back on that because I think it's a balance between composition and playing.
It's tough to do both, man.
Yeah, it's very, but you need both, because being behind the screen all the day and being not in action,
Right.
Not communicating with people your music it's not good. You need this moment of sharing music with real humans, whether it's musician or an audience, But then I moved to New York and I really fell in love with the town.
Yeah.
I started to work with a composer over there, Jeff Grace, and we started to work on some project, and I learned a lot being with him, and on the side I was also doing other projects, but really when I went to New York, I felt also the town was really good. So after that, I went back to LA to work a little bit more. I went also to Malaysia to work on a huge project for a film that has been number one in the box office in Southeast Asia, and now it's going to China, and I think it's going in the US soon. It's called
really?
It's called Upin Ipin. So I just have been orchestrator on that. I didn't write any music, but it was.
Hey man, that's something. It's a feather in the cap, man.
Yeah, it was very thrilling, and I met the composer through internet,
Yeah.
And it was very delightful experience. They were very nice. They invited me in Malaysia, so I got to see and to be inside a very big production studio in Malaysia. It was really great. But the recording was in Prague, so it was remotely, so I couldn't see the orchestra physically.
Ah, okay.
But
okay.
Still, it was a good experience. And so after that, I went to New York, LA. I did a couple of round trip, and now I'm settled in New York, and I'm like super happy. The city is very inspiring. It's.
I was just in New York, man. One, I didn't realize how many more people were in New York than in Chicago. And I always feel like Chicago is a pretty busy place, man. I mean, you know that you were here for 2 years, but New York is a super busy place, man. And everywhere I went, I rode the trains. I mean, like everybody else, I rode the trains a lot. And there were musicians everywhere. Everywhere I went, there was somebody with a violin case or a trumpet case or the guitar case. It was wild to see that many musicians in one place like that.
And you don't only have musicians, you have tons of musicians, but you have also like theater, actors, film.
Yes.
For films, it's very good. You have business people also, you have advertising, you have all kind of people. Like it's very, very, very diverse. And I feel where LA, it's more centralized around like the industry, you know.
Yes.
In New York, what describes the best New York is diversity, you know, as much as nationalities, as much as culture, but also in terms of work and jobs and arts.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but Chicago feel active. But then when you go to LA, it's very spread out, so you don't get the same. You don't get the same vibe. But it's still there. Also in LA, you have a lot of stuff going on.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, LA has a whole different vibe together, man.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is. It's hard to explain unless you've been there. But yeah, it's definitely more chill. You're right. It is more spread out than say Chicago is. It's definitely most of the stuff is happening in and around downtown. A lot of that also has to do with the fact that it's kind of more of a film thing out there in LA. In New York, it's film. As you said, you can probably make really good money as a jingle writer out there because there's a lot of the biggest business in the world. Yeah, they're just out there, man.
You have to go there.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, which borough are you living in?
Brooklyn.
Okay.
Bed-Stuy. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with it. That's where I was looking at. When I was gonna come out there, man.
Yeah.
I have a slight change of plans though, so maybe next year though.
You changed your plan. Oh.
Yeah, man. You know what? It just the job I got just wasn't really paying the amount of money I wanted to spend. I mean, it was an okay amount of money, but for me to leave, it just didn't really make sense. To be totally honest. Yeah, but
you can find something else, in New York. Like, I mean, you find jobs in New York. It's like so huge. So
for sure,
you can start with something and then find something else.
Absolutely, no, you're absolutely right. So what are you working on now? Now that you're there, you got you have some things, some movies underneath your belt. What projects are you currently working on?
So I'm preparing a film next year in France. It's a French movie. I'm also working with a French company on a couple of advertising and stuff like that. I'm working in New York with a composer. We're working on some projects. And some side projects, that come, like music videos, short films.
For sure.
So a lot of stuff, very different projects like that. Yeah. But for now, mainly with the composer and preparing the movie for next year.
Dig, man, I love it. Do you have a regular day job?
Yeah, like I'm assisting the composer, so I'm his assistant. So I'm in studio with him, and I mean, it's the best way to learn and to see how he do things. And so I work like full time until September, October,
Okay.
Then I have visa, so we will see what happens with that. Because as a French citizen, I have to apply for artist visa.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I'm working on, is like setting up a huge portfolio where I describe all my work, what I have done, and how I can contribute for the country. Like how is it good for America to give me a visa of 3 years? How can I what can I bring? So that's
for sure.
That's
Well,
tough,
if
man.
anybody sees this, this guy is a #1 guy, man. He's a good dude. So, I mean, it sounds like you got a lot going on, and I love to hear that personally. It's encouraging for me to hear that you're out there making the best of your time out there in New York. But I'm sure we talked about this before, but my memory is trash, and I don't really remember. So, what were you doing before? We know you're from France. Your accent is a dead giveaway. What, what were you doing? Kind of, let me narrow a little bit for you. What was your musical journey, say from like high school until you got to Columbia in Chicago? What were some of the steps that kind of led you down this path?
I started piano at 6, classical piano.
Mm-hmm.
Then around 11, 12, I started to play the vibraphone. I wanted to play steel drum, but I couldn't find the only place to find a steel drum was Trinidad and Tobago, and my parents found it would be a little bit complicated to get a steel drum from Trinidad. So I chose the vibes, which I thought was a more common instrument, and then I realized it's not common at all.
Right.
And so I did percussion studies in France, classical and jazz. Then I went to the Paris Conservatoire in a jazz performance. And I did some composition over there in film and musicology. So I did very different stuff, performing and composition. And then I went to Michigan thanks to a scholarship, because we have exchanges between Europe and the US, and some American students can come to Europe and study, and some European students can come to the US and study. And so I really loved my experience at the University of Michigan. I did jazz over there mainly, but I started also to work on films, and at this time, that's where I started to do more and more films. And then I applied to this university in Chicago, and I met the director, and he was very, very nice. He was very interested in my work, and we exchanged. We really got along. We had similar state of mind, I think, and it was very interesting. He was very creative and he was really trying to find creative people to start to be part of the program. So I was I got a chance to be enrolled in the program, and then I started to be in Chicago. So that's lots of different things.
Yeah, man. I mean, I dig it, man. You've traveled a lot, man.
Yeah, I forgot to say I also did a small exchange program in Sweden, also as a jazz vibraphone player. It was so great. It was a great experience.
What has been your favorite city? I'm not going to ask your favorite country. That's kind of, countries are too big. But what has been your favorite city to live in or visit so far?
I think it's New York, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
I really loved Paris. Also, I had an amazing time in Paris. Chicago was also it was when I was in Michigan. I really dreamed about Chicago. I was really, wow, this is a real great place. If I'm enrolled into the program, if I can get into the Columbia College, being 2 years in Chicago is amazing, and I was really happy. It's a very great city. I'm super happy that I could spend time in Chicago. It's somewhere I would go back. I would be happy to visit and to go back. It's a beautiful place.
For sure.
It's like New York or Paris. It's like this kind of very big and inspiring city, full of history, full of art and culture. But it's more laid back. You have space. It's clean. Not everywhere. You have also areas that are more or less dangerous. Not saying that it's clean and safe everywhere, but.
Yeah.
I was living in Pilsen and I was fine. I was going back to my house at midnight every night and never felt insecure or unsafe.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a lot of places get a bad rap for that. Living in Pilsen. You said you live in Pilsen. It's not that far from the school. The commute is easy. I don't know if you're driving or not, but even on the train, it's very easy to get back and forth from Pilsen on a train, and it's largely a Mexican neighborhood, but it's great. I think a lot of places get a worse rap than what it actually, most people who talk about places that are like, oh, I wouldn't go down there, have never lived in those areas or don't know many people from those areas. So they only kind of, their opinions of the place are very uninformed for the most part.
So in August, before I moved to Chicago, I started to read articles about Chicago, and I was very scared. I was like, oh my God, there is like shootings every day. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true, it exists. And so I was freaking out. But then when you arrived, you just realize that, I mean, it's violence is here, but I think it's in some neighborhoods, but in your day-to-day life, you don't really feel more unsafe than anywhere else. So I was and actually, I told you, like, I feel pretty. People are very chill and nice, and there is not a lot of French people over there, so it was a good thing.
No, there is not. So you were ready wherever you went.
Yeah, right. You were happy to meet. Like in New York, it's like French people everywhere. So.
Is it really? I mean,
oh, yeah.
I've been 3 times now, and I'm a tourist myself, so I'm always kind of like looking around, like, oh, what's going on, this kind of thing. But there's a decent sized French community, like people from France in New York.
If you go to Central Park, you will hear more French than English.
Oh wow, man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I mean, there is certain times also, but it's really the I think the number one destination in America for French people, and it's New York. Like, everybody wants to. In France, everybody New York is amazing. Everybody wants.
Sure.
It's like a dream,
Yeah. I dig, man. So let me ask you a question. What's the biggest difference between France and like the U.S.? So like for you.
Besides the food.
Is it the food?
No, it's fine actually. It's very good restaurant here. So.
Oh, you like the food better in France?
I used to, but I'm discovering some good things also.
You can be honest. If you like the food better in France, it's okay, man.
I just miss my bread and cheese,
Oh yeah, for sure, man.
But no, but the food is actually pretty good here. Mm-hmm. What are the difference? I mean, the language, it's a big thing.
The what?
The language.
The long wedge?
No, sorry, the language.
Oh, the language. Oh, see, you were saying how a French person would say it, and I said how. Oh man, sorry, bro. No, that is a big thing, man. And let me just say, for like, your English is really good, so
thank you.
Don't feel bad about that. But the language is a big deal. Are people taken aback by you when they hear you speak?
What do you mean?
Are they shocked when they hear you?
Not shocked, but
hear your accent.
Not shocked, but most of people figure out very quickly. Oh, you're from France, okay. But sometimes I got some funny guess, like people thought that I was from England. I was like surprised. What?
Right. Yeah. That's not even close. Yeah.
But it's. I think it's cool because, like, American people are very curious and they're like, oh, you have an accent. Where are you from? And just having the small talks really help to meet people. It's like, where are you from? Oh, have you visited there? And it's something you can easily start a conversation based just on that.
Absolutely, man.
So it's really a way to meet people.
For sure, absolutely. I know a lot of American girls claim to like the French accent. Has that been working for you at all? Have you used that to your advantage, sir?
Not consciously, I mean, I don't have I cannot choose to have an accent or not. So,
right.
So sure. For me, I don't have an accent, when I speak,
okay.
But I know people hear it, so it must be here. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, people say that. I don't know. What's your take on that? Would a girl with a French accent sounds better for you, or what?
You know what, man? I think that whole thing. I've been around the world quite a bit myself, and accents they don't necessarily do it for me. You know what I mean? Like, they're fine. You know what I mean? But I'm not personally like, oh God, an accent is so sexy.
Yeah. No, but I think that's the reality. Is what you describe is like, you like a person, and if they have a quality, then you unconsciously add this quality, but the real attraction is not. I mean, you don't come up to the street and say, "Hey, I'm French. You want to go on a date?"
Right. Right. No, I dig, man. Yeah, I think Americans, because this country is so big, there are a lot of different accents within this particular country, and I don't know if you notice it on some level. Americans have this like huge fascination with all things European. It doesn't matter what type of European it is. I know in Europe you guys talk about other countries, but in America it's just like, oh, that's Europe. Like so there's so like I said, as an American, I just kind of noticed that, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, I definitely think so, man. And there's something exotic about it, about the different culture, all the different languages. And, all the white people here in America are descendants of Europeans for the most part. So I think there is something inherently interesting about this, like I don't want to call it like fanatic thing, but there's some sort of what's the word I want to use? There's some sort of intrigue about anybody that's European. The fact that you speak French, you have the accent. You've been places in the world that aren't a place in the States.
Mm-hmm.
There's something unique about you in particular. And honestly, I spent a lot of time in Asia, and I kind of got that from the other side. A lot of people were kind of interested in me because I'm from America, and I'm a black dude from America, and they were kind of interested in that fact. They wanted to know what it was like. I've never been to Europe, but I don't know. I guess they at this point they're pretty much used to it. But I wouldn't be as much of a novelty there. But
I think you would. I think you would be. I think you would be. There is not that many American, for example, in France. It's pretty rare. You have tourists and stuff, but actual people living there and spending time, and it's you will be new. You will be your own thing.
Oh really? Oh man, that's where. Well, I know there are quite a few Africans that live in France. I thought maybe me being another black guy, maybe the fact that I'm an American would be more of a novelty than the fact that I'm a black dude in France. Is that? I mean, there are quite a few Africans living in France, right?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that there's quite a few people from like the Ivory Coast that speak France, speak France, that speak French, but I wasn't sure if they all were living there and whatnot. So, yeah, man, I'm gonna have to come check it out, man. I've always wanted to go. Well, maybe not now. Are they still rioting in France?
I still what?
Are they still rioting in France?
You mean? What do you mean?
I know there was like an uprising between like the people and the government.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's still, but I mean, the newspaper makes it big, but it's totally
not
safe.
that big of a deal.
No, it's not.
Okay. Okay.
It's really not dangerous. Yeah. I mean, if there is a risk, it's definitely not. It's not because of this. You
Sure. Don't. Okay. Well, that's interesting because every time I'm on Yahoo and it says something about France, it makes it seem like it's such a big deal. They throw rocks at the police and stuff like that. And it's just like, oh, it's just terrible, these people. I'm just like, whoa, man, like what's going on out there?
I mean, it's if you're in the middle of a protest, but if you see a protest, just take the other street,
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So, you've been in America for a while now. Do you eventually plan to move back to France and kind of be, some sort of I don't know, French, like a French composer, like do you plan on staying here? I mean, if you had the option, let's just say you had the option of staying here, the work is worked out. Do you want to be a French composer in America, or you want to be a French composer in France?
I don't know. It's part of the unpredictable things that happen in life, and I wouldn't decide. I would let things decide for me, like my life decide for itself. I think in the end, we always go back to our roots, So
Sure.
I will probably go back at some point, but for the next few years, I think. I'm happy in New York. I like it.
Yes.
As long as I have opportunities here, I'm excited to be here, but I'm also excited to go back and for me, I'm no matter what I will be happy with, but it's hard to say now where I want to be because it's not up to me first, and it's part of the beauty of what makes your life exciting is you don't know where you will end up. If you told me like 6 months ago that I will be in New York, I wouldn't have believed you. You know.
Wow. Yeah, man. Man, and you got balls of steel, man.
What?
Steel, you're very courageous. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I keep throwing out all these American sayings at you, and you don't know what they mean. I apologize. Then you can use that though. Balls of steel just means you have.
Yeah. No, I understand, but I was not sure to have understood, but I understood.
You got it now. Okay. Good. Yeah, it'll make you seem more American the next time you say that. It's a little gift for you.
Yeah, but that's kind of an expression you cannot use in. It's not very formal, right? It's not something you can.
You know what? It depends. Maybe not at the office, but amongst friends or at a bar. You know what I mean? Or you know, in a non-formal setting, you can absolutely use it.
Yeah.
People might actually get a chuckle out of it too. They'll be like, "Oh man, how do you know that?" You know, it'll be cool, man.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this: how would you say something like that? Like, what's a French phrase for something like that? To say you're like being courageous, or you know?
Yeah. We would say like a pair of balls. You know, like.
Oh, okay, all right.
What you say? The translation would work.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with it, man.
So now you have your first sentence if you go to France.
My first sentence?
Yeah, you know that this translates well, so you can use it.
Oh, okay, great. When I get there, I'll just say bonjour, balls of steel.
That's my name. I'm balls of steel.
Balls of steel. That's fantastic, man. That is fantastic, dude. I love it. So, let me see. We got your career. We got your schooling. You got anything that you want to throw out?
No, just I think we talk about the creative process, and I think that's what I wanted to talk with you because I remember that was part of our conversation, and I know that's something you're really interested by. And
sure, man.
So
let me ask you this: what current composers or style of or like a TV show that you find it to be interesting right now, as far as like the music, what things that are happening maybe that you're not contributing to that you find to be interesting right now that really gives you, besides jazz, that really gives you that's a great source of creativity?
That's a tough question because I'm always behind everything, you know, like I always go backwards and I always find my inspiration in previous piece of art. So I'm not very like I don't have like one TV show right now that I would say is inspiring me musically, but I have a bunch of movies that I saw recently that are well known, but that are source of inspiration or composers' names, you know, that really inspires me. But it's hard to say one.
I mean, you can give me multiple. What movies have you seen recently that have really piqued your interest?
Like The Shape of Water, but I mean, it's not. It has been awarded by an Oscar, so it's not really.
That's okay, saying, man. That's okay, bro. Whatever you like, man.
That's pretty mainstream.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I find also a lot of inspiration in jazz and in trying to think about movies that I saw recently. Oh, I have seen this Italian composer called Dario Marianelli, who, you know, this movie about Winston Churchill, I found it beautiful, and the music was really elevating the story in a beautiful way. So he's a composer I was really following.
Wait, they let an Italian guy write the music for a movie about Winston Churchill?
They let him because he's living in London.
Ah, okay. I was supposed to say that just seems like a no-no to me, man. Like what's going on? Like what is that, man? You're fighting those guys in the war. What's going on?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has a British accent and he sounds like totally English, but he's Italian.
Okay. Was he not born in Italy?
No, he was born in Italy. It's just I don't know. He just moved to London. London is a very big place for film scoring. Like all the recordings.
Sure. It's like New York. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the recordings in film scores are now produced in London. So it's huge.
Man.
So yeah, there was this guy also I found, and a lot of Hans Zimmer scores are also like very new all the time and very inspiring.
Yeah.
But it's not very melodic. I'm more attracted by, like I said, for me like the beautiful of music is through the melody. That's what I'm the more attracted to.
For sure, man. Who's your favorite or favorite? Give me more than one favorites. Composers, man. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which style of music. Like who are like your top 5 guys?
Stravinsky, Ravel, Borodin. I really love the Russian composers. Debussy. I would say Duke Ellington, but I could also Chick Corea. Chick Corea was for me like one of the most inspiring composers.
For sure.
I think it's already 5, but I could add John Williams, Alexander Desplat, or Danny Elfman also for film scores. I think he had like beautiful sounds. He made The Simpsons, which is crazy.
Yeah, I know. He used to be in a rock band or something like that back in the day, man.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I recently got to make something the people wanted something like Danny Elfman-ish, and I listened back to his music and I was like, wow, this is really him. He sounds like him,
Yeah, man, he's got some crazy sounds, dude.
But that was during the 90s until the 2000s. And I feel it was more melodic by this time, and nowadays it's.
Oh my god, for sure, dude. Now it's like all super drummy and like kind of electronic now, man. It's not really. It's really not a lot of melody, man. I don't know if you ever. So I grew up. Sorry to cut you off. I just had what you said. You really triggered me, man. I watched a lot of Disney movies in the 90s. John Williams did a lot of those movies, and I think everybody was kind of chasing that sound. There was a lot more traditional orchestra composing during that time. And I feel like over the last 20 years, that has maybe 25 years at this point.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, things have really changed, man.
Yeah.
Really, really, really changed. And there aren't a ton of melody-driven movies, like movie scores being produced now. And I like it from the standpoint that it's something different, but I find it hard to sing a melody now, especially in movies. And to me, that's part of the movie. When the Star Wars movies, there's not a pitch collection. There's a library of sound that is associated with those movies now. You know what I mean? So when I hear it, when I hear little themes, when I hear very specific melodies or riffs, I'm like, oh, that is so Star Wars, But now when I go to a movie, it's hard for me to attach some emotions with the movie, And that's to me, that takes away from the movie. It takes away from the overall experience, And I think that's something that's missing. I'm not saying that the stuff that's out now is bad. I just think that there was a little bit more thematic material associated with movies.
So the reason of that is because we tend to go towards more and more realism, and the music is bringing a kind of mythological dimension into a movie. Like you speak about Star Wars, but Star Wars is built like an opera, like a mythology. It could be like a Greek mythology. It could be like it's an epic story. Nowadays, films are more and more towards showing real life, you know, and even, for example, you take the James Bond, they wanted like a more realistic James Bond, you know, or 24, the TV show.
Oh yeah, Kiefer Sutherland, yeah.
They want more and more realism. So if you add music in that, or if you add the theme, then the music become a myth, you know. The hero become like mythological. So if you want something realistic, you have to use more texture and subtle things to communicate emotion, but you have to be really subtle. So I think that's also why we try to make the cinema more and more realistic, because also of the means.
Sure.
Now we have the equipment to make a movie look like it's real life. Before, we knew, like with silent movie, we knew it was a fiction, so we could use more of that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what we'll do after, because maybe after we will be okay. We have been into very close realism. Maybe now it's interesting to mix very close realism with mythological, and that's where maybe I can play a role.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of things are going to turn more electronic, just EDM, not necessarily dance music, but I think things are going to continue to as more sounds are created, electronic sounds are created. I feel like we're going to continue to move that way. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think orchestras are ever going to die completely, but they have become more specialized in film now, you know, and the need for an orchestra has shrunken quite a bit. You're always going to need great players, right? But the sound engineer, to me, is as much of a composer as you know, John Williams. You know, to be totally honest, a lot of the things that I hear now, I mean, like I said, they're not really melody driven. So maybe that way, maybe that's where we're heading with it. Everything is kind of going to be more or less a some sort of like electronic soundscapes as opposed to orchestral styling, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that I kind of feel like that's where it's definitely headed, more or less.
But what we'll remember, you know, in 20 or 30 years will be like the few things that will stand out, and the few things that stand out are most of the time melody driven, or at least a texture or something different, you know. Like, for example, if you take the score of damn, I have a blank. Vangelis, you know, Vangelis. Blade Runner, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
If you take the score of Blade Runner made by Vangelis, it was just synths, and it wasn't like very melody driven, but it stood out somehow.
Yeah.
So you have also the way to make things different without melody. But in the end, you have to show something. You have to propose something different.
Yeah. Well, you know, Hans Zimmer doesn't use a ton of melody, but he's gotten really good at creating memorable sounds with the stuff that he does use. So I guess that is something to be. I guess that's something. You know, I don't know what it is, and I love his scores, man. I really do. He's very riffy, you know, and kind of thematic. I know the Batman sounds. Like when I hear that stuff, I'm like, oh man, okay, I get it, you know. But
yeah, but for example, if I ask you to sing the Batman of Hans Zimmer, and if you ask and if you sing the Batman of Danny Elfman, like Danny Elfman, everybody knows, you know, you know, like you hear the theme, but the Batman of Hans Zimmer, it's much harder to like sing the melody, you know.
Yeah, you know what I remember most about the like Hans Zimmer Batman is the French horns, that bum bum, like that little half step or the second.
Yeah, that's more voicing.
I remember, man. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but that's all I really remember.
Yeah, that's more voicing, and I think it's because he comes from the pop music. I mean, Danny Elfman also comes from the pop, but again, it's like different era.
Sure, absolutely, man, absolutely. You know, just to illustrate your point even further, not that you needed it, but the Laura, have you seen it? Yeah, Charlie Parker played it. But do you remember the movie Laura? Written by I can't think of his. I think I think of his name right now. But Laura is the face in the misty light.
Yeah.
That you remember that, dude? I watched that movie, and man, when that theme comes in, it's so memorable and it's so good. And I think that movie came out in the 50s or like 40s or 50s or something like that. That was 80 years ago almost, man. And like I just remember that. And a lot of jazz musicians have played that song.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on the I love a good melody. I guess somebody will figure out how to do both. Really good. Might be you, man. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, some composer, like the composer like Dario Marianelli, the Italian guy that I told you, or Alexandre Desplat, or people like that, they are really writing memorable theme. Like Alexandre Desplat, he just won 2 Oscars just by, and his strength is totally melodic.
For sure.
So I think it's still, I think we will always need melodies. Like nowadays we're talking more and more about computers making music and computers being able to produce music. But one thing a computer will be never able to do, I think, it's produce a very beautiful melody. I think it's impossible because the computer cannot know if it's a melody.
They'll figure it out.
I think
we're all out of a job, damn it.
I believe computers can produce good songs,
yeah.
But I don't think they can produce good melodies. That's my take. But
let me just say, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I love it, bro. I love it. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, man. Did you you got anything else you want to say? You want to give a shout out to your mom and dad? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, thank you very much for like giving me this interview and talking about creativity, about music on your podcast. It's really great, and I'm happy to have news from you also. And just want to say, come to New York.
Oh, dude, for sure, man, for sure. Now that I know you're there and kind of planted, I definitely will come visit, man. Absolutely, 1,000%. Hey, man, if people want to be able to reach out to you, where can they find you at?
Oh yeah, so I have a website. So it's www.thomaschabalier.com. ThomasChabalier. So just you can send a message over there, or you can, yeah.
You got an email?
Yeah, so thomas.chabalier@gmail.com.
Great, man. I'll make sure I'll leave all that information in the description below, and I'll also make sure that we give a link to the website. So hopefully we can get some people. Yeah, man, we get some people reaching out to you, man, and checking out all the awesome things that you're doing, man. I'm super proud of you. I'm really looking forward. Once the movie is out, if you can, man, we gotta see if you can send me a link to that movie so I can check it out, so I can brag about you a little bit.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah.
I have some music about the movie already. We have already some music ready, so I can send you some music if you want.
Fantastic, man. I love it. Send it to me via Messenger, man. I'll make sure I link that too, man.
Okay, with pleasure.
Yeah, great. Tom, I appreciate you so much. Good luck with everything in the future, my man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hit me up when you're in New York, please.
I absolutely will, man. We'll see if we can find a French restaurant, and you can tell me what to get.
You can introduce yourself as Balls of Steel.
Okay. I love it. I'm gonna do it, man. Just don't be embarrassed, because I'll do it. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me and my friend Thomas Chabalier from France. He's a tremendous composer and writer, jazz pianist too, and vibraphonist. So I heard you practicing one day, and I was like, "Who the hell is that?" And it was you, and I was like, "Oh, okay, dig. He got some real chops, man." But we got so much more content coming to you in the future. Be on the lookout for you. I appreciate you guys. Take it easy. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.